Good morning, this is Kelley Hobart. I'm here on Technique Tuesday, and I just wanted to first start off by saying I am deeply saddened about all that's going on right now, and George Floyd's family is going through a very difficult time, and I just wanted to give my condolences to them and say that, you know, my best prayers and wishes and everything are with the family members at this time. It's a terrible time for them, I'm sure. Today we are going to be talking about how to create lovely fabrics and what you might think of before you start to create your first sweater. So some things you might have in the back of your mind before you start to knit your very first sweater. And then I was also thinking about maybe how some yarns might feel differently depending on what they are made out of, and some ideas that I had for possibly making a sweater that's more versatile and can be worn in more than just the very coldest of weather. Also, as we're going along, don't forget to let us know where you're from, what you're working on, and if you have any wonderful patterns that you'd love to share. I love to see them because it gives me ideas for things that I might like to knit, and then we can learn and grow together. And sometimes I use them for Technique Tuesday, so it's totally fantastic. Also, don't forget, every week we give a prize, and for last week we had Comfort DK, and the color that was chosen was a primary colorways. And so this is an acrylic. Let me tell you exactly what it's made out of. I'm looking here. 50% superfine nylon and 50% superfine acrylic. And I've been knitting a lot with this yarn lately. And I was specifically looking at the worsted weight yarn. And I was playing around. I had one skein, so I was messing around with the stripes on stripes baby sweater. And you can see it here. Now notice right in here. Do you notice this line right here? That is, I was knitting in the car on the way to go see my granddaughter, and all of a sudden the yarn started getting ropey, and it was very twisting in on itself and basically overplied. And so if you ever have that problem with the yarn, what you can do is stop and let the yarn untwist. Just let your project untwist so that the yarn doesn't have that tight twist. Because even with blocking, this did not come out, and there's no way to get it out. I will not be able to hide that and make it not show. And simply all that is this yarn that is twisted a little bit too tight, and it's visible. It turned into like rope that I was knitting with. So this is Comfort Worsted Weight by Baracco. And we contacted them right away because, like I said, I love to test the yarns before we bring them in. And this is a very economical yarn, very great yarn to knit with, but that little problem was a problem. And so Baracco, who was it that called us?
Well, Warren's looking at the owner.
Right, the owner of Baracco got right back to us, and he is checking into it, and it's a yarn that's made in Turkey, and it is a great yarn. What I love about this yarn, if you look at it, it creates a lovely fabric, and I know that people had said that it was a little bit splitty. I didn't find too much of a problem with that. You can see I don't have any split stitches or anything in there, and it's a really nice wearable yarn because it's not made out of wool, and it won't be quite so hot for you to put it on your baby. So this is called the Stripes on Stripes baby sweater. So now when we're looking at fabrics, this one right here was made out of a little bit thinner weight yarn, more of a DK weight yarn, and it's by Knit Cole, a Plymouth yarn company. It's a DK weight yarn, so it's a little bit lighter weight yarn. And I actually like how this one turned out better because the sleeves here are a little bit too wide, I think, and it looks really good on here. So I really, really like this pattern. And it was fun to knit, and it's, like I said, from Classic Elite by Susan Mills, and I think you can find it on Ravelry. We do not have it on our website, but it's called Stripes on Stripes. Now, today, I was looking at I just spent a day. I didn't have too much time to work on it. But if you look here, this is called the Jones sweater. And it's by Tin Can Knits. I don't know, have any of you out there knit anything from Tin Can Knits? They're wonderful. And what I love about this sweater is that not only is it a bottom up, basically in one piece, it's not going to be very much seaming at all, but it has nice, beautiful little cables in here. And I love moss stitch too. And then if you look right here on the top, I use stitch markers to identify my different patterns as I went along, so that I don't have to pay it much mind. I just knit along my merry way, and I don't get off pattern because I'm using those stitch markers to help me. So it's totally fantastic. And if you look, can you see what the yarn looks like? This has been blocked lightly. I just got it, soaked it in the sink. That's the back side of it.
What's the yarn?
It's called Sueno, and it's the DK weight version. Here it is right here.
And tell them why you like that.
And okay, let me tell you, I always talk about Sueno, but let me tell you why I like this Sueno DK in particular. If you look on the back here, it goes from a US number 3 needle to a number 7 needle. So what that means, and actually I've knit it at all the different gauges. I've knitted on a number 3 needle, and I think this one's like a 5 that I'm knitting on. But it does knit from a 3 to a 7 needle. And I don't know if you experienced knitters out there, how many other yarns can you find that is that versatile, that'll go all the way from a number 3 needle to a number 7 needle and still maintain its softness, all the beautiful characteristics, and doesn't have any bad characteristics? Because sometimes if you knit with a very small needle on some yarns, you'll turn them into a brick. I mean, they literally will get so stiff and not pliable that the finished product that you make won't work. Which brings me to another question. This last week we had a customer online, and she was asking a question. Her question was, do you knit your project according to the gauge that's on your pattern? Or do you knit your project with the needle size that is suggested for the yarn? And here's my thought on that. For me, I want to create desirable fabric. So if the pattern tells me to knit with a number 2 needle with Sueno yarn, and it doesn't recommend that small of a needle, I won't go down that small. What I'll do is change the actual size of the project that I'm knitting. Maybe the gauge says that according to my gauge, I should knit a medium, but the pattern says you should be doing a different pattern. What you should do is choose the size that best fits your fabric of your yarn. Don't choose the needle size for the actual pattern. I mean, within reason. Sometimes you can get away with it, and you can use a versatile yarn like this, and you could knit it at a number 3, which is the very lowest end of the spectrum for the yarn. But knitting it too tightly will take the desirable qualities of the yarn away, so you don't want to do that. Now let's take a look at another question, because we had a couple of questions from this last week. And we had a customer that asked for a summertime cowl or scarf, and I really liked the Let It Rain cowl. And then we also had the sawtooth scarf that was good. Both of those use fingering weight yarns, and for this time of year, using a lightweight yarn in the summertime is totally fantastic. And I think there's a knit along on Ravelry. Do you remember what that's called? And
Casapinka one?
The Casapinka one. And if you look up knit along on Ravelry, you'll find it. It's a pattern, but that's a paid for pattern, and a lot of people are really enjoying that project, so I could probably recommend that one too. And then we had another customer say, how do you find time to knit so much? Well, it's very rarely I am sitting and doing nothing. Usually I am usually almost always up by 4:30. And so I get up very early and I sit down with my cup of coffee and get right to work. And I usually put book on tape and I knit my merry heart out. I mean, I literally did this much of my sweater. I'm ready to split for this sleeves. It's for a baby sweater. And I did this in one sitting. So I am very persistent. I don't let a lot of things distract me, and I get right to work. Right, Jim? Mm-hmm. And then I use every single technique that I can use to make my project faster. Because if I didn't have these little stitches marked, which is a knit 1, purl 2, and then over here a knit 1, purl 2, I might accidentally turn that into moss stitch. But see, I marked that section because I know me. I might mess that up if I got in too big of a hurry and not maintain my moss stitch perfectly. So I marked all those sections. If it takes 50 stitch markers for me to mark every single section so I don't mess something up, I do that. I have no problems moving stitch markers. I mean, to me, they're just bookmarks, and I just fling them right by. Actually, sometimes I actually fling them. Right, Jim? And they go flying off the needles, and I'm like, oh, darn. Then that slows me down because I have to stop, find it, and it's usually buried somewhere in the carpet, and I'm sitting there staring at the carpet trying to find it. But stitch markers are a great friend.
There was one other question.
Oh, what was the last one? That was it. Oh, any more tips on buttons and buttonholes? And if you look under our blog articles, we have a whole blog that I did on 5 different buttonholes, and then I talked about which ones I found that I liked the best. Kathleen will post that for you. Also, when you're thinking about knits and you're looking at what kind of stuff that you normally wear, like I wear these kind of jackets because they're not too hot in the summertime, and I can wear them all through the day. Of course, here in this area, in the higher altitudes, it snowed last night, right, Jim? So it's still a little bit cold here, but I do find that I look in the closet to see what kind of shirts and what kind of thickness I actually like to wear. So that's always something to keep in mind, because you can change your weight. Like you can do a fingering weight wool and make it much easier for you to be able to wear it than a chunky weight wool. So, and also sometimes, like the contest for today is for vintage chunky, and I think this is a really good sweater yarn for even if you like chunky weight yarns and you want to make a chunky weight sweater. Using an acrylic wool blend that is machine washable is a really good option, and this yarn is it's machine washable, and it's a fantastic yarn. It holds up really well. It's sturdy. Again, it's by Baracco, and Baracco really stands by their work. And if you look on the back here,
it's vintage chunky.
It is, yes, it's vintage chunky. It's 52% acrylic, 40% wool, and 8% nylon. That nylon gives it some durability there. And so I've used this yarn a ton of times. So you guys, this is the price for this week, right, Jim? Mm-hmm. And it is for vintage chunky in the banana colorway or vintage chunky in the lilac colorway. So you guys help me choose which one you think might be the best for our winner for this week. Lilac or banana? So I thought it was a really good choice. And then I have this pattern that I did a long time ago, and it's free on Alpaca Direct, right? And it's made with vintage chunky. And what it is a reversible cabled baby blanket.
It's Kisses
and it's called Kisses and Hugs, and it's free on Ravelry.
It's on our site.
Oh, sorry. It's free on Alpaca Direct. Yes. So, yeah, this is a really fun one, and it makes a really nice, if you look, it has a really nice edge on it. So if you guys haven't done this project yet, it is really fun. I like that one. And I think it takes about 6 skeins of vintage chunky to make that project. Also, this was the latte baby jacket that I did a few weeks ago, the week before last, I believe. And I found this fabric. Okay, so before I had chosen fabric, but it was 100% cotton with no stretch. And then it dawns on me. Well, knitting has some stretch to it, so you have to line it with something that has stretch. So I found this at the fabric store, and you see how it stretches both ways? And I found a very small print since it was gonna be for a baby project. And anyway, I am going to line this little jacket with that. And so that way she can wear it in the summertime even. And this is a really comfortable, cozy little fabric. I thought it would be cute.
And what yarn did you use for that?
This one is, this is another yarn that I was testing. Remember, Jim? It's a superwash merino that we want to bring in from Peru. And it is fantastic. I love that yarn. I'm very excited about that yarn. I could knit with that yarn all day long. It is really, really fantastic. But I am enjoying this Sueno in the DK weight, and I love how it works. So let's just take 1 second and see if we can take a look at reversible cables. For those of you who have not, not reversible cables, but cabling without a cable needle. And if you look at my little pattern here, this chart A, simply when you see a cable that goes off to the left, you know that that's a left-leaning cable. And then if you see how it goes to the right, you know that's a right-leaning cable. So you don't really need to look at your stitch glossary to tell which one's which, because it's easy to see. So when it's a right-leaning cable, you're going to be holding the yarn in the, you're going to be cabling in the back, and then the front is left-leaning cable. So let's take a look at that.
So what are you showing here? We
are showing how I cable. You remember how we were just talking about, Jim, I'm going to, just give me a sec, okay? I'm going to, how I knit quickly and get stuff done. One of the ways that I'm able to do it when I'm cabling is to cable without a cable needle. So on moss stitch, you see how there's 2 purl stitches there? I know that it's time to switch the pattern, because every time you see 2 stitches that are the same, then it's time to make that knit a purl and make the purl a knit. So we have that. And then if you look at my pattern, I have a pattern of a knit 1, purl 2, and then I mark those because those never change. They always stay the same. And then when you're going to do a left-leaning cable, it's going to be cabling in the front. So you know that the working yarn can't stay in the front because it'll get in your way of being able to cable. So you put the working yarn in back and slip those 3 stitches. Now you would knit the 3 stitches. Then you take your cable, your actually left-hand needle, and you hold those 3 stitches in the front. Now watch. I'm just going to take my needle on the left-hand side, and I'm going to transfer those stitches over and go ahead and knit them. And that's how easy it is to do a cable without a cable needle. Let me just lock this in here. See? Isn't that cool? So that's all you have to do, and then you do the opposite for right leaning. You would put the working yarn in front, and then you would hold the stitches in the back. But you can cable quite a few stitches without a cable needle just by taking your index finger and your thumb and stabilizing those stitches that you're going to remove from your knitting needle just for a second, and then put them back on and then continue on knitting. So if you haven't tried to cable without a cable needle, I would take a look at that, and I have done quite a few videos on that as well. I have the little 1-minute videos on cabling without a cable needle, doing a left and a right twist, both. So like I said, this Jones pattern by Tin Can Knits, it's a super knit, super quick knit pattern, and it has like a shawl collar, and it has sizes all the way from newborn to adult. So you could make a mommy and daughter sweater, or you can make a dad and son sweater like here. And so I thought it would be really cute to make heirloom sweaters that you could have that kind of, maybe not the same color, but they kind of match each other, and then just hand it down from generations. I think that was what the designer had thought about when she had designed that actual pattern. So let's take a look at our contest and see who was our, we have some Comfort DK, and this was the winner for this week, and the winner is Donna Groth Rudolph. Yay! Congratulations, Donna. You won yourself some Comfort DK. And this is a great summertime yarn. So all you have to do, Donna, is get in touch with Alpaca Direct and give us your address, and we can get this out in the mail right away, and you can give it a try and see how you like this Comfort DK and make a really cute baby sweater. And for those of you, for this week's prize, for this next week, the entry is going to be for Vintage Chunky and Lilac or Vintage Chunky and Banana. So you guys help me choose so we can get those in the mail. Totally beautiful yarn. And then I'm trying to think of what else. What were we going to work on? I didn't really talk about what we're going to work on for this next week, but I think I'm going to finish this sweater up, and maybe there's something that I learned that I can help you with for next week on that project. But it's a great pattern by Tin Can Knits, and I found that actual pattern. I think I downloaded it off of Ravelry. So I think Kathleen will give you the link for that. And so for the summary for this week is, if you choose yarns carefully, you can make yourself projects that you will enjoy and actually be able to wear. And then I love the idea that you can make a sweater that is for the mommy, daddy, and the kids all at once, and make little heirloom cabled sweaters, because this is definitely adorable. And then cabling without a cable needle really speeds up your cabling projects. So learning how to do that. I remember when I first started, it was a little bit hard for me to catch on and to understand it. So I was doing it the old way, and then I told myself, you know what? I just need to learn it. And once I understood the basics behind it, I was able to get rid of the cable needles all the way. And I don't use cable needles at all anymore. And then don't forget that when you're doing projects, you can line them. If the wool is a little bit scratchy, you can get 4-way stretch fabric and actually line your projects and make them wearable all the way through the year. So that is something to think about. And so I hope you guys have a great week, and I will talk to you next Tuesday.